Hi, I'm Joshua Slocum, Executive Director of Funeral Consumers Alliance. We're a nonprofit funeral planning group that helps people figure out how to lay a loved one to rest in a way that's affordable and that meets their emotional needs. We get calls from all over the country every day. How do I plan this burial? How do I plan this funeral? How do I plan this cremation? And one of the most common questions is, how will I afford this? I want to start you at the beginning. The most important part of funeral planning starts at the beginning, and that starts with taking stock of your budget. How much money can your family comfortably afford? That's where we'll begin. Let's use car shopping as an analogy. Now, I realize that funerals are a business transaction, but they are also an emotional transaction, and that's important. But it is important not to lose sight of the fact that this is a business transaction and it is going to cost money. So, for example, when you're shopping for a car, if you know that you can afford a $15,000 car, you're probably not going to be looking at $50,000 models. Unfortunately, a lot of people simply don't know the difference because funerals are not something that we get practice shopping for. So again, let's start at the beginning. What is your budget for a funeral? And when I ask that, I'm not asking how much you think the funeral home is going to charge you. I'm asking, how much is your budget? How much money does your family have that they can comfortably put toward a funeral, a burial, or a cremation without jeopardizing living expenses? Let's use a typical example that I've pulled from some of the phone calls that we've had over the years. Jane's mother has died. The family is used to having a conventional funeral, which you might think of as a traditional funeral. That usually includes embalming, public viewing of the body, a funeral ceremony, procession, and a graveside service. But the average cost of a full-service conventional funeral is about $7,300, and that's before you even add on the additional $2,000 to $3,000 that come in cemetery costs. But Jane's family doesn't have $7,300, and they certainly don't have $10,000. They have $3,000. What are they going to do? Well, this is the time that you have to make some choices based on priorities. $3,000 is not going to buy a full-service conventional funeral and a burial, but there are plenty of options in there that it will buy. And here's one thing that's really important to remember. Remember what your parents told you when you were a kid. Love cannot be bought with money. It is the thought that counts. So even if you have to take your second choices and have, say, a direct burial or a simple cremation, you can add things like a private family viewing with embalming, or your family can put on a memorial service that's very personal and very loving at church or in a social hall. As with every purchase, it pays to shop around when it comes to funerals. One of the things that Funeral Consumers Alliance and its local volunteer-run affiliates do are cost comparison surveys. So we take the funeral home price list from, say, one city or one county, and we compare the cost for comparable services among those different providers. This is the same thing that you're used to doing when you shop for an iPhone or a contractor for your roof or a car mechanic. But what you will find when you compare cremation and burial prices all in one city or county is there is a huge disparity that you are probably not expecting. So as an example, if you're in the market for a simple cremation, and a reasonable price for that is somewhere between $800 and $1,200, if you call 5 funeral homes, you're likely to find a range from $900 to almost $4,000 for exactly the same thing. Remember that you have rights as a funeral consumer. We'll talk about this in detail in later videos, but remember something called the funeral rule. This is a regulation from the Federal Trade Commission that gives you, the grieving family member, the right to get price quotes by phone when you call any funeral provider business, and it also gives you the right to a printed, itemized price list when you visit that funeral home and at the beginning of any arrangements discussion. That's enough to get you started for right now, but I want to leave you with a few resources that you can look at while you get ready to watch our next video. Make sure to visit our website, www.funerals.org. Once you're there, you'll see a tab that says For Consumers, and we start with the basics and we take you on to more detailed matters. Notice also that we have a directory of our Funeral Consumers Alliance educational groups around the country. In many states, we have local, largely volunteer-run groups that have done some of this price shopping for you, and these people are on your side. These are the folks in your community who know the funeral homes and cremation businesses, that treat customers well, and that offer reasonable prices. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.